The Case of the Derelict Daughter, Episode 4, Gangsters. I had just left the 7-Eleven up on the highway and looked down at the cigar I'd probably just wasted money on. It was cheap, but maybe it would get me through. I stuck the overly sweet thing in my mouth and reached for my Zippo when something struck me in the back. Spinning around, cigar jutting from my jaw, I found a bruiser of a guy holding a baseball bat. "You coming with us, mister?" the guy said, enough drama to give Sean Penn fits. I hit him so hard in his nose that I felt my knuckle crack. Something or someone else was coming up behind me, so I spun again, leaving the first thug to hit the ground, pulling my Service 1911 as I did. I fired just as I brought it out of the shoulder holster, hitting the second thug in the right knee. I didn't even have time before the third equally stupid goon would have hit me, so I didn't bother aiming or even firing my gun again. I shoved it forward using the barrel as a blunt spike. It hit the last guy in the forehead, snapping his head back and dropping the running man straight down to the asphalt like a sack of potatoes. "You fellas picked a bad day," I said, dropping the 9mm and pulling my old Colt. "Hey, we was gonna bring you to the boss," the first guy I hit, his eyes already swelling shut, whined. Popping a fella in the back with a bat and saying, "You're coming with us," isn't the most polite way to handle a guy who might be armed, I told the kid. And that's just what he was, a kid. Hey, put that thing down," the kid stammered again, the black hood of his hoodie forgotten. His voice sounded a little nasally to me, or at least I hope so. My hand would be swollen a week. It'd be a shame if I hadn't broken his damn nose. "Why should I asked, holding the gun. "And holding this gun is a hell of a lot more polite than what you've done to me." I paused and smiled. "See?" I tilted the gun so they could look. "I don't even have my finger on the trigger. Who do I look like to you, Alec Baldwin?" Hey, look." Another kid tried again, his hands in the air. I must have scared him with that Baldwin barb, I guess. "The boss said not to take any chances with you, so we weren't taking any chances, you see?" I grunted and put the gun away, taking my eyes off the kid to look for my 9mm and the brass I'd dropped. "You better call an ambulance for that kid I shot before he loses his whole goddamn leg." I pointed at the third kid who was rolling around on the ground. I popped him in his forehead with my gun. "I think he's waking up," I said. "Get him to help you do it." And then I sat down on the curb, looking at the now bent and pitiful cigar. "And just who's your boss anyway, kid?" Alexei Andorov," the kid told me. I looked up, my eyebrows raised. "A Russian? Seriously?" The kid nodded, talking into himself. "Well, call him when you're done and send me a car. If it's the Russians involved, they can afford it," I told the boy. "What's your name, kid, anyway?" I asked, then patted my trench coat down for my damn Zippo. I was always losing the effing thing. "Jimmy," the kid said as he hung up the phone. "Jimmy Olsen." I had lit the Zippo and was bringing it to the tip of that bent cigar when I stopped and looked at the kid with what had to be confusion on my face. "And no," he said, his voice nasally, "I don't want to grow up to be a reporter." "Then what?" "A fucking drug dealer, yo. Make some big bucks." The idiot was bouncing on the balls of his feet as he said it like there was some kind of rap music in the background. I just shook my head and waited for the Russians. Fucking kids these days. Turns out, what I thought was the head of the Russian mob in Dallas was born in Pennsylvania. Oh, and he weren't no mobster neither. He was a gamer kid from Philly who ended up at a call center having dropped out of college. He sold weed. Hydro. A real menace, this kid. I mean, fuck. And it was an Uber that picked me up. Go figure. The kid's girlfriend had gone missing, and he'd heard from someone close to someone who knew someone in my client's house. If I take the case, my client, that is. Whatever. If you've been paying attention, it's pretty complicated, okay? So no gangsters this time, just a bunch of college kids who played at being stoner drug dealers or some goddamn such like that. It was in his dorm room, and no, I have no idea how a kid who dropped out of school 5 years ago still had a dorm room. Just no clue, really. But I was putting away my handy-dandy notebook. Well, I'll call it that until old Blue copyrights it, I guess. Anyway, I was putting my notes away when someone kicked the kid's dorm room door in. "Federal agents!" Maretti screamed as he came in, gun up in the ready position. 2 more agents, their guns at low ready, followed him into the little room. And the older gentlemanly guy, in a charcoal double-breasted suit, red power tie included, stood just outside. The kid looked at the guns, then over at the aquarium where his hydro setup was going, and then back at the guns, and then passed right the fuck out. I mean, the kid's eyes rolled back into the back of his skull, and he went down like my junior prom date Sally. Mustang Sally. I'll tell you about her sometime. "Hey," I said with a sigh, "you guys realize we're already into episode 4 of this thing, and not only have we not given the people listening the gangsters that the title implied, but we haven't even got to the fucking case yet. I mean, Jesus, Maretti," I scolded. "I think you just gave this poor stoner kid a heart attack." "That's Alexei?" Maretti asked. I said, shrugging. "That's he paused, putting his gun away. "Russian? I guess his grandfather's from Russia or something," I told the spook, my tone condescending. "This is America, you racist dolt. What's the matter with you? Just because some kid has a Russian last name doesn't mean he's just another mob boss selling smack and hookers." Maretti cringed. "That's enough, Jackson. Stop teasing the man," an actual Russian accent said from behind the agents, who looked at this. They just realized how stupid everyone in the room was, excluding possibly the kid that was in a coma. "See," I said, standing and putting my hat on my head. "Just the example of the exception that proves the rule." I paused and tilted my head as if thinking. "What was it we decided, Caliban? Was it the KGB you were in or something else, like Kids for Gulags or some shit?" "Don't be crass, Jackson," Dragomir Caliban said as he entered the room. "Well, fuck you too, Caliban," I said and cleared my throat. "But yeah, thanks for letting me stay in that cabin. I appreciate it." And then I tried to duck through all the people to get out, just get away. "Wait," the Russian said. I stopped and turned around, going straight to the aquarium. Well, and when I say aquarium, I'm talking the thing took up half the little dorm room. It was where the second bed was supposed to be, I suppose. And it made the place pretty tight. It was getting hot. Looking down at the kid snoring softly, "I don't think he'll miss a little bit if I take some," I said and snapped off a couple of great big nugs off the plant. "It's for medicinal issues, genetic." "I understand your anger and confusion. And I also understand why you think my intentions are bad. However, you're a child. You know nothing about the way this world works and what you are involved in." The Russian was very matter-of-fact. "How exactly do you get to be in charge of anything in our government, having been a KGB agent? I just want to know." And tried to once again push my way through. "Because, Jackson, I was born in Arkansas." I could never tell if the bastard was serious or making a joke. I mean, it's conceivable that he was born in Arkansas and his life just had a very strange and... Anyway. "You must needs hear me out, and let me introduce you to this man. There are things you do not know, Jackson. At the end, you will get your money, every last cent. Free and clear taxes paid to all governments in concern, guaranteed. Your inheritance from the man who is technically still alive." I thought about that long and hard. I mean, orphan kid here with nothing. Not a God-blessed thing. I had to email the dude who was in charge of the trust set up for me just to get a place to stay. And here he was, offering me wealth and want for nothing. And I wouldn't have to ever ask for anything but, except flash, blood, more blood than there ever should have been, all over the walls, soaked into the hardwood floor. How many? I asked, my voice gravelly with pure pain. I remember asking it as I stumbled, flashing lights in the haze of shock outside the house. What do you mean, how many? The sheriff's deputy asked. Captain Cain, he said. Your fiancé was the only victim we could find. There's too much blood for that. Too much blood. And then I couldn't fathom. It had to have been every drop, every microscopic cell of her blood there in that room, on the walls, on the floors, in the vents. I stumbled. I felt it. It was set to happen when you were married, the Russian voice continued. And it was my blind rage at the mention of her. Out of his mouth, him of all people, he who had them call off the case, file it away so no one would work on it. This motherfucker who made me put the love of my life in the cold ground without a shred of justice. None at all. My gun was in my hand and the hammer was cocked before he could finish his sentence. Say her name, I growled. Say her fucking name, Caliban. I beg you. Just say it one time, you Russian spook, and I'll put a hole in your head the size of a fucking grapefruit. I heard another click. And I take you down with him, Maretti said, his little pistol at my temple. This one would like to know. Kitty Renard's fucking voice came out from the corner, and I was confused, looking around. Everyone else in the room was confused too, dropping their weapons. That if anyone hurts my Jackson Cain, she continued, her voice predatory and sexy, as she materialized out of the shadow from the corner of the room. I will peel their skin from their faces with my claws. And the last was delivered with a smile. The Asian woman's smile was disconcerting, given she had fangs. Dragomir sighed and put his hands up. Everyone stop. Leave the room. He turned to me before leaving. Just you, me, my guest, and Miss Renard here tonight. At your place. Food will be served. I laughed, uncocking the hammer in my 45 and putting it in its holster. You gonna fit all of us in that little space? I asked. You better order in if you are. Dragomir shook his balding Russian head. Sure. Do not worry. And why Kitty? I asked. I don't understand what that dame is in this at all. No offense, lady. I paused and went toward the door myself. And she seems creepier than most, if you get my meaning. I mean, just plain strange, even if she is another one of you spooks. Another thing we must discuss. Oh, great. Now it was family dinner with special guests. Just fucking terrific. I even had a date. Oh, joy. Maybe this broad won't key my truck after dinner, for once. Although the forklift thing was unique. I probably won't see that kind of ingenuity for years. If ever, I'm sure.